welcome to Tech Revolution Africa 2.0. Ladies and gentlemen, Tech Revolution Africa starts now. Right now, I'm going to be calling on another of the co-founders, Mr. Olamigoke. He is, of course, the co-founder for Tech Revolution Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together as he comes forward for his welcome note. A round of applause, please.
Hi, everyone. Are we excited to be here this morning? Okay. So usually for speeches like this, there's the temptation to go formal and all that. But I try to be as informal as possible. Some moments ago, a few days back actually, I found myself reminiscing on my journey into technology, right? So I was born in Kaduna, a state in the northern part of Nigeria, but had a lot of my primary and secondary school education, in the southwest, in Ondo State specifically. When I was going to get into the university, there was a mini confusion in my family, but let me explain. My dad, had seen this young boy and felt like this guy had something in his destiny to do with computers. He wasn't sure precisely, but he saw computers all around me. But my mom, on the other hand, felt like, nah, my son has to be a doctor. Right? Can we guess, who can guess what side I was on? Whose side I was on? Sorry? I'm hearing mom. Anybody thinks it was my dad? He thinks it was my dad. It was actually my mom. I wanted to be a doctor. And that's because that was the in thing then, right? And I actually applied for that. I applied for medicine. I got human anatomy, which was a weird course in my opinion, but I did that. At some point during my NYSC, I found technology about 8+ years now, and I have not looked back, right? That time has seen me learn multiple skills from, software engineering, software development, to products. So currently, I'm a product leader who has built products that are currently being used by millions of customers around the world, right? And so I'm giving that background, because it's important context for what I will be talking on in this welcoming speech, right? I like engaging my audience, and so I want us to read this together. 1, 2, ready, go. The big, bold step is execution, right? We had the first edition of this conference last year, and it was exciting from the quality of speakers, the companies we had around in the room, the sessions we had, and more. Something we wanted, as an outcome of the next edition, this edition, is the fact that we wanted, this conference basically to move, to not just be about talk and conversations, to not just be about sessions. We have a lot of tech conferences and conferences happening everywhere. Talk, more. But we know that when it comes to real transformation, when it comes to the evolution, the rise, the growth of innovation, right? The ascension of our digital economy in Africa, it essentially rests on the pillar of execution. Right? Now let's delve into the world of execution. When I say execution, I mean this conference has a goal, And the goal is that we can all go back to our various sectors, our various industries, right? Irrespective of whatever we're doing, whether we're employees currently or we're employers or we're founders or we're talents. The goal is that we go back with the mindset of execution, of building, because that's really is how innovation, right, will rise and spread on the continent. Let me tell you about Tadi, right? He is brilliant. He sees opportunities. He has big ideas. His notebook is full, and his friends are full of admiration for him. So Tadi is the brilliant guy, always getting ideas, you know. We have Tadis, for example, in universities right now, and I've met a couple of them because I mentor startup founders as well, early-stage startup founders. So in the schools, there's a lot of brilliant ideas, right? And so Tadi is full of ideas, he's brilliant, full admiration from his friends. But there's something about Tadi, in spite of his brilliance, in spite of the exciting things, ideas he has, in spite of his full notebook, there apparently is a lack of execution ability, right? And so a year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, Tadi is still the brilliant guy, but there's no value created, right? There is nothing built. There's no product. There's no prototype. There's no startup. There's no revenue generated. There's no employees hired, right? For someone like Tadi, what are some possible reasons why that is the case with him? Meaning he has ideas, but he's not able to execute. One, Tadi fears being seen as a failure, right? And I want to dwell on this a little bit. When I was thinking about this, I realized that we don't exactly fear failure. The problem is not we fearing failure. And I'll explain. If you were all alone in your room, and let's say you were practicing a jump from point A to point B in your room. If you tried it the first time and you didn't meet the mark, do you feel really bad? Not exactly. You try again, and you try again, and you try again. If you try to a point and you get tired, you go to sleep and try the next day. So we don't exactly fear failure. What we fear is being seen as failures. Who can relate with that? What we really fear is being seen as failures. So I'm in my room, I can practice to jump from A to B and fail many times. I won't feel bad. I might feel disappointed, but not that bad. But if there were someone else in the room with me, my friend or my friends, I have the fear that if they see that happen to me, they will mock me. And so I hold back. That's the first thing that Tadi suffers from. Right? Tadi confuses motion with progress. Right? We have like a popular quote that talks about or refers to moving around in circles without making any progress. And so Tadi has the big ideas. He's doing a lot of research. He's asking ChatGPT questions, asking Meta AI questions, right? He's planning, drawing sketches and all that stuff, drawing flows and prototypes and stuff. But he's not doing the most important thing. He's not building on that, which is he's not executing yet, right? So this is Tadi's second problem. A lot of motion, a lot of things that feel like value or things that feel like creating value but actually are not. Right? Before you judge Tadi, because some of us are probably saying, that Tadi guy, that guy is not serious. He doesn't know what's up. Let him come in. Let me mentor him. But before we judge Tadi, how many of us are Tadi? He raised his hand. Thank you, sir. That's very honest. Right? You don't have to raise your hands. But think about it. Think about it. There are many Tadis in this room. Right? And again, the idea is execution. With execution is the goal. Without execution, basically, the brilliant ideas we have, the planning and all the motions will not be able to translate into real progress. Now, You have a question. What does Tade need to do? What should Tade do? One, the time-boxed bet. Now, I've walked around some of the issues that Tade faces. The fear of failure, or the fear of being seen as a failure, right? That has to be conquered. That has to be conquered. It's a mindset that has to be dealt with. There's no one who's truly built or driven innovation, whether on a small scale, on a middle level scale, or medium scale, or a large scale, across sectors, that did not fail. There's no one. There's no one. We don't have time. We could go into examples and use cases. And so I'm telling us and charging us this morning that it's impossible to build something monumental, something notable, without failing at some point. And the reason is because failing is actually how we learn the lessons. So failure is essential to innovation because failure teaches you lessons which help you pivot, which we'll look at and talk about in a bit, and which ultimately drive and produce real innovation. So the time-boxed bet means that to execute better, if you have a problem with execution, to execute better, right, instead of planning in infinity, set a time frame, have a timeline, set a time milestone. And so what that means is I have this lofty idea, I'm building a roadmap, and I will get X and X and X done in 6 months with results. It works, right? It also works, better, especially when you have persons around you, accountability partners who you can share this plan with. But the first fix, or one of the important fixes, is the time-boxed bet. So I have this plan. I want to launch a startup. I want to build a product. And it doesn't matter the sector, fintech, health tech, edtech, and all that. Putting a time frame will help you approach execution better, right? The cost of delay. Every minute, every second, every hour, every day you are not executing, you are not out there driving, right? It's time you are wasting not collecting insights from the market. And that's why I give the context about, me being a product leader, right? And we have something called the MVP, the minimum viable product. The concept of the MVP is I have assumptions. I have an idea. I have assumptions, right? If I was to build this out into the sweet, nice, full suit application or product, it would take me 1 year. But I don't have 1 year, right? And so I will build the smallest tangible version of that product, good enough to enable my users test and validate my idea, right? And so this helps you deal with delay. So the cost of delay is every second, minute, hour, I am sitting on this and just moving around and around and around without executing, right? It's time I am not getting insights from the market. Data that will be valuable for me and help me make, intelligent-driven decisions, right? This is important. Moving to an execution mindset means also that you need to transition from plan, execute, to what? Can we take it together? Plan, execute, pivot. One of the most interesting concepts or things that I have learned as a product leader over the last couple of years is the power of pivot. And what it speaks to is I start off on ground A. There are assumptions in there, and I launch to the market, right? And based on data, based on insights I gather from the market, right, I am able to make adjustments to my idea. I'm able to make adjustments to my solution. I'm able to make adjustments to what I'm offering the market. That's the power of pivoting, right? I've made some bold claims today. For example, I said it's impossible to truly innovate without failure. I'm making another bold claim now to say that there is no truly big, truly innovative company today who has not had to pivot multiple times. Call the big companies, the Googles, the Metas, the Apples, the Flutterwaves, the Paystacks, and the more, right? So the execution mindset means that instead of plan, execute, I plan, and then I execute, and then I gather insights, and then I pivot. The journey of pivoting sometimes is a lifetime effort, right? And that's why for startups today, enterprise companies, there's a whole division focused on data, correct? Gathering insights, and the data has to be interpreted, has to be analyzed, analytics, and fleshed into insights. And from insights, we can make data-driven decisions. So pivoting is a constant thing. So if you shift to this mindset, what it helps you do is that you focus less on having the perfect plan. You focus more on planning sufficiently, executing, right? And a lot of times when you execute, you find out that you had some of your assumptions, correct. And for the little parts or chunks that are not correct, you can pivot based on the data. Now, somebody might have a question. It appears I have talked down on planning. It appears I've talked down on strategy, but I've not really talked down on it. I'm trying to move us from I'm trying to move us into an execution mindset. And so, be bold without being reckless, right? So this is not a call to recklessness. This is not a call to being less strategic, right? And so as we execute, we need to ensure that we've done our homework. All the researches you need to have carry them out across market research, user research, customer research, and all competitor research and all the different categories. Ensure you've done your research, ensure you have data which will help frame your strategy for execution and for launch to the market if you were building a product. Finally, as I wrap up, execution is the bedrock or the foundation that turns our imagination into innovation. All of the companies that we celebrate today who have built innovative stuff, even this conference, right, if we did not take the big, bold step to execute against all odds. And for example, this conference, we've had teams working for 7-8 months, at some point up to 15 teams with team leads, assistant team leads, and members in the team working around the clock. A lot of cross collaboration. It's an operations-heavy adventure. But the critical thing is, without the execution components, imagine that this was still just an idea, and we are planning and planning and planning, without executing. So execution is what turns imagination into innovation. And so, finally, for the next slide, I'd like us to chorus what we see there together. 1, 2, go. So this is your call. Again, this conference's goal is for us to do what? Take the big, bold step today. The big, bold step is contextual. For some of us, the talents, it's finally getting the boldness to update your CV and shoot for a new role and the company you deserve. For some other talents, it's finally taking that step to get that needed certification, that required certification in your field. For the founders, it's not giving up. Later today, we have our Startup Fest pitch competition, which I'm personally looking forward to. We're going to have 11 startups pitch on this stage, all early stage. And so if there are early stage founders in here, or even if you're a large company, corporate, enterprise company, or startup, the big bold step for you is probably for you not to give up, but to keep pressing. It could be a pivot, like we've talked about. And so the big bold step for us is contextual. It's to keep building. If you have an idea you've been sitting on for a long time, If you don't take time, there's somebody else who will shoot it. It might even be me who will launch the idea before you. So ensure you execute, right? And so, finally, the goal, again, is for us to shift into an execution mindset and lifestyle. Thank you very much. I'm Olamigoke. Enjoy the rest of the conference.